It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. A warning from inside an NHS hospital almost entirely given over to fighting COVID-19.
I am one of the person who ignored all the message, unless sometimes I was saying, this is not true, but no, it's true, can kill you.
On the wards, staff are shattered, patients desperate. A record day of COVID vaccinations, but the Health Secretary says the end of lockdown remains a long way off. Flagging unions, support for independence growing across the nations of the UK. Plus, snowy scenes bring joy across much of the country and a warning not to break social distancing rules. In sport, a moment of magic from Bruno Fernandes sees Manchester United beat arch-rivals Liverpool to a place in the FA Cup fifth round. And we'll take a look at tomorrow's front pages in the press preview at 10:30. Hello, good evening. Tonight, Sky News brings you a report from inside the Royal Free and Barnet hospitals in North London, which captures the moments of joy and despair taking place across Britain. It reveals an NHS where everyone is fighting the pandemic. Eye consultants from other hospitals are drafted in. Child therapists are working on the wards as support staff. Student nurses are called in to help. And patients struggle to survive alone, quarantined from their loved ones. It is, one health worker tells us, hell. A warning, you may find parts of our home editor Jason Farrell's report distressing.
If this virus could be beaten by round-the-clock, unrelenting care, then it would be done for.
This is hell. We cannot continue like this. We need to ask people to please contribute, stay home.
Exhausted medics and terrified patients gasping for life in sealed-off rooms have the same message for those of us lucky enough not to be here.
I am one of the person, sometimes I was saying, this is not true, but no, it's true, can kill you.
I do understand people want to get together, and see their relatives. This is the result.
It's all ages. They're my age or even younger than me, and there's older people.
Who've died of COVID?
Yes.
This is the epicenter of the COVID crisis, a place of miracles.
I cannot tell you how relieved we are, how happy we are, how thankful.
And unimaginable heartbreak.
We just all hope that we will live and come out of it. I do, anyway.
I just think it's staggering this has become a normal way to practice medicine. It just makes everything so much more difficult. And for awake patients, very, very scary.
When we first arrived in the Royal Free Hospital last Tuesday, intensive care consultant Mike Spiro was playing a losing game of bed spaces.
There is a limit to the critical care capacity in London. We're at a situation within the whole of London at the moment whereby we are having to consider transferring patients out long range. Yeah, we have to select very carefully who we move, because what we don't want to do is move someone and then deteriorate en route.
Yeah, and how far might they have to move?
At the moment we're looking at the Midlands.
The title Royal was granted to the Free Hospital by Queen Victoria for its fight against the cholera epidemic in the 1800s. Now nearly every floor of this 12-storey building is treating patients with COVID.
He could go into one of the high-vis side rooms if...
We've got space down the end, which
okay,
it's
fine.
He'll be monitored anyway.
Fine.
The operations room records 307 positive patients on site. Over a quarter, more than 80 of them, are on ventilators.
Pressure control, we brought it down from 18 to 16 because I think he's waking up, so the tidal volumes are too high. Actually, we could bring it down now.
In normal times, this room would be a recovery ward for surgery patients. It's been adapted. They've doubled the bed numbers, and each specialist ITU nurse, such as Nicholas, used to offering one-to-one care, now has at least 3 patients under their watch.
I feel like I want to cry in many moments. I mean, I can't do my job properly.
What's been the toughest thing for you?
Well, basically, I mean, lots of people are passing away, and you have to keep doing your job when you have a gentleman or a lady that is passed away and is lying next to you, and basically we just need to keep going and wait for somebody else to come and take care of that, and it's horrible.
My biggest worry is whether we've got enough staff to get through the next 24 hours, the next 48 hours, and I think that's the thing that keeps me awake at night. This week we've had the army in.
Yes, I saw the army had arrived.
That's right, yes.
So that's a help.
Oh, it's a huge help, actually.
Everyone is mucking in. If not army medics, it's medical students, even surgeons acting as nurses. Lucy Barker, a consultant from Moorfields Eye Hospital, now clearing airways. Next to her, Evelyn and Patricia, two therapists who'd normally work with special needs children in the community, now putting mittens on a 41-year-old COVID patient to stop her pulling at the tubes.
Thank you so much for helping.
Add to that specialists from every corner of the hospital offering their expertise.
Everyone has a role to play because COVID is a multi-system disease. We see kidney issues, we see liver issues, we see clots, and we see heart attacks. And apart from the devastating effect it can have on the lung.
Then there's another type of care, for those desperate to be at the bedside. On the 4th floor, medical student Helen spends all day FaceTiming patients' families.
So you're literally kind of going from patient to patient,
Literally,
the ones who are conscious at least. And
No, any of, even if they're
even if they're not conscious?
Yeah.
But this was a special moment. The first time Nikolai Usachi responded to his loved ones since early December.
How long has he been in intensive care?
He's been more than 40 days from the 6th of December till now.
Yeah, that must be a very traumatic time for your family.
Yes, but we never lost hope. We just prayed, we thanked God, and we prayed again. He's a miracle. We just thank to God.
No more feedback or high flow unless required.
So he's not short of breath or anything?
It feels much better and more breathless at the moment.
On the 8th floor, a step down from intensive care, Sidali Yusufi is slowly becoming less dependent on the equipment that's helping him to breathe.
This is a massive improvement over the last 4 days. I'm really
Exactly,
pleased.
I appreciate. It's the end of the world, apocalypse. Honestly, it's the apocalypse. Can't breathe. Yeah. You feel very cold in the brain. Very cold and freezing. And a lot of panic. A lot of panic. I was feeling that's it, it's the end. This is really serious. You have to take it serious. I am one of the person who ignored all the message, unless sometimes I was saying, this is not true, but no, is it true? Can kill you.
In the basement of the hospital, patients are looked after with the same care as they were upstairs.
We care for patients. They're patients. They're not, they're still patients. We treat them as they are.
But these are the ones who didn't make it.
There is no pacemaker. There is nothing on the face or ears. It's a bit, heartbreaking coming every day to do this and still have people telling to your face that this is not real or that this is the flu.
When you open these fridge doors sometimes, you must see some quite young faces as well.
Yes, definitely. It's all ages, really. Like, we have patients that they're my age or even younger than me, and there's older people.
Who've died of COVID?
Yes.
And that must shock you when you see that.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
Sometimes it's the hardest, I think, it's when you see someone that maybe reminds you of somebody else that you know, or a familiar name, or a familiar age, you think automatically about your family or your friends.
A red asterisk marks the patients with COVID, and this is by nearly every name. Laura too has noticed a change in the people coming here.
The first time were definitely older patients, but it seems more varied this time. It seems to be a much wider age group of patient that we're getting into our care. It's more sort of patients in their 50s and 60s that we're seeing this time, rather than patients in their 70s, 80s, 90s like we were the first time.
At Barnet, the Royal Free Sister Hospital, COVID COVID intake is double that of the first wave, and the average age coming in is 59, a decade younger than first time round. Here we meet 73-year-old Tony Brown, a key worker, lorry driver, who delivered bread and is now precariously ill.
How are you feeling?
Absolute terrible. If people would have taken a lot more care when this come out and hadn't ignored it, we wouldn't be in such a mess. Very bad nights, very worrying nights. Twice I went to ring your wife, tell her I weren't coming.
What's your wife's name?
Linda. I miss her.
When was the last time you saw Linda?
Over 2 weeks ago.
Linda allowed us to broadcast this interview, which took place on Thursday.
I really miss.
That is one of the hardest things, I'm sure, not being able to see your wife.
I hopefully one day, hopefully I will. It's all I want now. I don't want anything else in life.
I'm sad to tell you, Tony didn't make it. He died on Friday night.
I'm sorry.
Behind glass and warning tape, medics in masks and gowns are the only company for those fighting quiet, terrifying battles against a virus that in the UK has taken nearly 100,000 lives.
Well, Jason joins us now from the newsroom. And Jason, it's hard not to conclude from your report that the NHS is facing its biggest challenge in its history.
Yeah, that's right. And everyone's thoughts at Sky with Tony's family tonight, and with all of those other patients who are struggling and the staff who are trying to help them. This is undoubtedly certainly the most difficult time of the NHS in my lifetime. And what's interesting, I have been into hospitals before, normally with politicians on campaign trails where the nurses and doctors are lined up and it's very sanitised and stage managed. And this experience was the complete opposite of that. We were allowed to go wherever we wanted, speak to whoever we wanted. And if someone was dying in the room or if someone was being revived in the room at that moment, then that was what was happening. And I think that the Royal Free and other hospitals have allowed journalists to do this because they want the public to have a window into their world. It is a terrifying world at the moment, and these decisions they have to make are not easy. I was in a consultant's room when they were talking about, for example, when they were going to restart liver transplants. They do about 150 a year, and they're on hold at the moment. And these are life-saving operations, and these are decisions they're having to make all the time. And hospitals are pooling resources, pooling space, and it's not really just about space, of course. It is a massive, colossal logistical human resources nightmare that they're having to deal with, and lives are being saved because people are willing to say yes to incredibly challenging work schedules. And it is both inspiring and very sad and worrying to watch and witness, and we will continue to be in the Royal Free for at least another 3 weeks alongside those medics, seeing how they get on with this crisis.
Jason, thank you. And as Jason was saying there, we will bring you more reports from him from inside the Royal Free Hospital and Barnet Hospital in the coming weeks on Sky News. Well, staying with the pandemic, and today saw another record with nearly 500,000 people vaccinated. 3/4 of over 80s have now had a COVID jab. But despite the continued pace of the vaccine rollout programme, the Health Secretary Matt Hancock told Sky's Sophie Ridge on Sunday programme that the UK is a long, long, long way from a return to normality. Well, in the last 24 hours, 610 new deaths have been recorded of people who've died within 28 days of a positive test, bringing the total number of people who've died to 97,939. Just over 30,000 new infections have been recorded, And so far, more than 6.3 million people have received their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. Sky's Laura Bundock reports.
History is preserved in this old pharmacy, but it's modern medicine being administered at the Black Country Living Museum, one of 32 new vaccination centres opening this week. Joining the likes of this setup in South Manchester.
It's necessary because not everybody's following the rules, and it's 70% what they've just said to me. This first injection is 70% protection.
You know, it may not work, you know, but it's there, it's going to help, and it's going to help the elderly and, you know, people that are, you know, that are at risk.
Record-breaking numbers have been vaccinated this weekend. 3/4 of the over 80s have had their jab, but they don't yet have their freedom. And today, the warning, don't expect a rapid end to restrictions.
There is early evidence that the lockdown is starting to bring cases down, but we're a long way from that, from being low enough. I am confident in the measures that we've got in place now. What really matters is that everybody follows them.
But that's not easy for the self-employed. The future of Jenna Smith's beauty business is looking pretty bleak.
Devastated, if I'm honest with you. I've never really felt like this. I've never had any trouble with any kind of mental health problems or anything, but I feel myself kind of developing a bit of an anxiety around it. How can they expect us to have no income and get by and also abide by their rules?
Compliance is crucial as vaccination continues, but new variants are a constant threat, with dozens of UK cases linked to those overseas. So tougher quarantine here is likely, as are regular booster jabs.
We're living in a world where coronavirus is so prevalent and rapidly mutating that there are going to be new variants that pop up in all sorts of different countries. We may well be in a situation where we end up having to have an annual coronavirus vaccine, much like we do with the flu vaccine.
It's been a harsh winter, with the UK on the brink of 100,000 COVID deaths. And it's hard to see the depressingly distant end. Laura Bundock, Sky News.
Well, that story's featuring in tomorrow's newspapers. There's the headline in tomorrow's Eye. Delaying second dose will save more lives, says vaccine chief. And we'll be taking a first look at all the front pages in our press preview at 10:30 with Guardian columnist Zoe Williams and chief political correspondent at the Daily Telegraph, Christopher Hope. Earlier this week, the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, set out new fines for people breaking lockdown rules and meeting in large numbers. Today, police issued fixed penalty notices totalling £15,000 after 300 people attended an illegal rave. Their conduct was described as incredibly selfish and put officers' lives at risk. Our crime correspondent, Martin Brunt, has this report.
Police say there were 300 at the illegal rave in an unused railway arch. When the revellers fled, they managed to stop 78 of them and gave them fixed penalty notices. They'll all have to pay £200 fines.
We're still having to deal with these incidents where many people are coming together to, enjoy themselves because they don't think that the rules apply to them. They think they're immune from this virus. Well, you know what? If we've reached a point where those individuals don't care about themselves, then fine. But what about the police officers who have to deal with them? What about their family members? And that's the level of irresponsibility that we're dealing with.
Officers seized the sound system. They hope that will help them identify the organisers, who could face fines of £10,000. After the raid, the policeman in charge captured the debris left behind.
Police have condemned the rave, describing revellers as incredibly selfish, endangering others and forcing officers to risk their own health.
Some of those who got away used a ladder at a back entrance. There was clear evidence of the rush to escape the police. One young woman returned to find something she'd dropped.
Do you feel a bit guilty that, people are getting ill and dying?
Yes, I do.
And I suppose I'm quite an impulsive person, and I feel like it's going on everywhere. So there's a part of you that feels like you're missing out. And I'm not saying it's something I regularly go and do, but sometimes you just want to go and see what's actually out there and explore what's out there if you feel like everyone else is doing it.
In the past week, police have broken up other raves, and they found 150 guests at an illegal wedding party. They insist anyone at such gatherings will be fined. Martin Brunt, Sky News, East London.
Let's take a look now at some of the day's other news. And Israel is to ban all passenger flights into and out of the country in an attempt to contain the spread of COVID-19 and the new variants of coronavirus. From 10 o'clock tomorrow night until the end of the month, travellers will be prevented from entering or leaving the country except in cases approved by a special committee. 3 more teenagers have been arrested over the murder of a 15-year-old boy near his home in the Handsworth area of Birmingham on Thursday. Keon Lincoln died from a gunshot and stab wounds after he was attacked by a group of youths. 5 teenagers have now been detained by the police over the attack. All are aged between 14 and 16. One has been released under investigation.
3, 2, 1, 0.
A SpaceX rocket has set a new record for the number of satellites sent into space. The Falcon 9 booster, launched out of Florida by Elon Musk's aerospace company, carried 143 payloads, beating the previous record of 104. They included a mixture of commercial and government satellites. 11 miners trapped in a gold mine in the eastern Shandong province of China have been rescued, according to Chinese state media. Officials said the miners were extremely weak and were taken to hospital. Another 10 are still trapped, as our Asia correspondent Tom Cheshire reports.
They had been buried alive. 2 weeks in the dark, freezing underground, 600 metres down. This was the first miner returned to the surface. His eyes blindfolded against the glare of a sun not seen for a fortnight. One by one, they were raised up and delivered to safety. Some were too weak to walk, carried to one of the 25 ambulances standing by at the scene. The first communication from the trapped miners received a week ago was a note saying, "Please don't stop trying to reach us." And you can see just how thankful this miner was that they did not.
The rescuers checked the miners to see if they had any injuries and covered their eyes for protection. Generally speaking, the rescue operation proceeded faster than expected. After lifting all the trapped miners discovered, we'll go on with the search for other missing miners.
On the 10th of January, an explosion blocked the main shaft at the Hushan gold mine in Shandong province, East China. The mine entrance was blocked 350 metres below the surface by 70 tonnes of debris, reaching down 100 metres. Rescuers made contact with the miners by drilling narrow shafts, sending telephones, food and medicine down. Then they drilled a new, wider shaft to reach the miners trapped in the midsection of the tunnel below and bring them to the surface. One miner was confirmed dead from a head injury. Others were in a bad state, and they were brought up first.
The critical cases come before the others. It's the principle of mine accident rescue. So the severe ones have been pulled up first, and the following are in better physical and psychological condition.
This is an ongoing rescue operation, though. Several miners are still unaccounted for. They drilled more holes to try and reach them. And, if they do find them, to send down food to try and keep them alive and strong. China's mining industry has a terrible safety record. There have been multiple deaths over the last 2 years alone. It is grimly unsurprising when a fatal mining accident occurs. It is a miracle when, like today, people survive. Tom Cheshire, Sky News, Beijing.
The centuries-old union between England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland looks weaker than ever tonight after polling showed support for a breakup is growing. The SNP said the poll was just the latest evidence of the need for a referendum if they win a mandate in elections later this year. But in Northern Ireland, the First Minister said a so-called border poll would be absolutely reckless. From Edinburgh, Sky's Gerard Tubb reports.
The 4 nations of the United Kingdom, their different approaches and differing powers, have been contrasted by the pandemic and by Brexit as never before. Now, majorities in both Scotland and Northern Ireland want referendums on whether to leave the UK. A new survey shows 49% of Scottish voters believe their nation will be independent within 10 years. In Northern Ireland, 51% want a referendum on a united Ireland in the next 5 years. The concept of reunification leaves 47% of Northern Ireland's voters pleased and 47% upset. Northern Ireland's Unionist First Minister condemned the idea as divisive.
I can argue for a United Kingdom every day of the week because, of course, the arguments are rational, they're logical, and they will win through. And I mean, nobody's suggesting, and not even this poll is suggesting, that we would lose in that if there was a border poll. But of course, it would be incredibly divisive. And I think most people in Northern Ireland want us to deal with what's in front of us at present. And of course, what's in front of us is dealing with a pandemic.
But it's Scotland, with elections 4 months away, where the pressure on a united kingdom is most acute, despite Boris Johnson's opposition. The SNP is telling voters, keep us in power in May, and we will force the issue of another referendum, no matter what Westminster says. It's a guarantee that the union will be tested once again.
There have been 20 polls in a row that show that independence is the majority choice of the people of Scotland. There's nothing remarkable about independence. If that's what the people of Scotland choose, it's a democratic move, and that's what they must have. But it is important now that the current UK government, and Boris Johnson in particular, recognises reality and doesn't continue to live in a fantasy world in which this is not happening.
The Scottish Conservatives are taking the threat seriously.
It would be damaging for Scotland. It would be damaging for the whole of the United Kingdom. This would have huge implications, not just for Scotland, but the whole UK. There are many issues that the SNP still can't answer about what our currency would be, how the economy would work, people's pensions, would there be a border between Scotland and England? This would be damaging for Scotland if the SNP ever got their way to separate Scotland from the rest of the country.
All this comes as the SNP deals with a claim that First Minister Nicola Sturgeon misled Parliament over sexual harassment allegations against her predecessor Alex Salmond, which she has promised to vigorously refute. The twin challenges of Brexit and COVID are changing the way we live and straining the ties of the United Kingdom. Gerard Tubbs, Sky News, Edinburgh.
Time now to take you over to Sky Sports News for an update from David.
Couple of belts.
This programme is brought to you by Vitality.
Oh, it's a catch. He's out.
However you do it, getting active brings its own rewards.
And thank you. Good evening. Manchester United are through to the FA Cup fifth round after a thrilling 3-2 win over their arch rivals and the Premier League champions Liverpool at Old Trafford. It was 1-1 at the break. Mason Greenwood cancelling out Mohamed Salah's opener. Well, Greenwood then set up Marcus Rashford 4 minutes after the break to put United 2-1 up. Liverpool were back level, though, after some sloppy defending from United. James Milner pouncing on a misplaced pass to find Roberto Firmino. He found Salah, and it was 2-2 just inside an hour. But a moment of magic from Bruno Fernandes decided a pulsating tie. His fantastic free kick, wrong-footed Alisson in the Liverpool goal to make it 3-2 to United. And that's the way it finished. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's side will face West Ham in round 5. England striker Tammy Abraham took home the match ball as his hat-trick helped Chelsea defeat Championship side Luton 3-1. Timo Werner and Reece James setting up the forwards' first 2 goals in the opening 16 minutes of the game at Stamford Bridge. A good passing move then gave Abraham a tap-in the second half. Werner's late penalty was saved, but Chelsea next faced Barnsley in the competition. Another Premier League team knocked out Championship opposition as Leicester came back from a goal down to beat Brentford 3-1. The informed James Maddison in the right place here to score their final goal and set up a tie with Brighton. Burnley ran out 3-0 winners to set up a meeting with either Bournemouth of the Championship or League Two side Crawley in round 5. Jay Rodriguez scoring twice at Craven Cottage. That was his first. Kevin Long got the other. Now, Everton will take on Wycombe or Tottenham after their 3-0 victory at home to Sheffield Wednesday. Dominic Calvert-Lewin scoring first with his 17th goal of the season. Richarlison and Yerry Mina were also on target after the break at Goodison Park. Livingston will play St Johnstone in next month's Scottish League Cup final after the second of this season's semi-finals at Hampden Park. The winner came after just 10 minutes. courtesy of Scott Robinson, who reacted quickest to Efe Ambrose's header coming back off the crossbar by putting in the rebound with a header of his own.